Hello and welcome to Modern Toy Fair. Today we're going to ask the question, will Haslab come to an end? I am your host, Mr. Modern Toy Fair, and I am joined by the man Modern Toy Fair has full custody over, the man Optimus Prime popped and who refuses to stop, the Twilight Knight, the Master of Mac, the three-pump chump of taking this show off the rails, Nate. How are you doing this week?
I am doing pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good.
That's good.
So, barring a few things, having a good week. Had some shitty things happen. So it's okay. It's okay. But I'm happy to be here to talk about Haslab.
Yeah, man. Talking about toys fixes most of life's problems, right?
Exactly.
At least most of the time. Sometimes it gets a little, makes you even more sad.
Fair.
Yeah, Haslab. It's been, for the most part, a pretty successful venture for Hasbro, but they've had some significant flops. Some with the same property multiple times. So just to give a quick rundown, these are the one Haslabs that we've had. So I had you help me because I looked them up and just tried to do this by memory. So with Star Wars, there was the Sail Barge, the Razor Crest, the Rancor, and then Reva's Lightsaber. The Rancor and Reva's Lightsaber did not get funded. The Razor Crest and Sail Barge did. Marvel had the Sentinel and Galactus and upcoming here soon, whatever they have planned for the Ghost Rider Haslab. Sentinel and Galactus got funded, so I have to assume unless they really shit the bed, Ghost Rider will too. G.I. Joe, the Sky Striker and his tank both got funded. Ghostbusters had the Proton Pack, got funded. Transformers had Unicron and the Star Saber Victory, both got funded. Sesame Street had a life-size Cookie Monster that did not get funded. So I guess this question kind of comes from the idea of every time they do a Haslab, the expectations get higher, but so do the prices. So it's harder for them to meet those expectations because, as the fandom does, they're like, oh, I hope we're going to get a bunch of extra figures and attachments and accessories and stuff, and it's going to be great. And then the price comes out and they're like, oh man, yeah, they're going to add so much more then. So it really seems like the bubble's got to pop at some point, right?
To an extent. So I think with every single one of these, a lesson is learned. Whether that gets funded or not funded or goes to production or not, I think they come away with more knowledge on what to do better and what to do differently going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I do, however, think that, and I actually blame the Marvel team on this because initially the stretch goals or add-ons or whatever they're called in this particular case, started out as like an extra figure with a sail barge. It was really only a packaging variant to just entice people to order. And that was it. That was the only item that was included, to entice. And then the Marvel team just kind of unleashes extra figures and extra heads and all this stuff. So that expectation has gotten more and more. So much so that as soon as the project is announced, it's no longer about the project. It's more about what are they going to add on to it.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous precedent that it sets, because I do think it's somewhat to blame to the Rancor's failure, although there's a larger issue at hand that we can get into later on.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree, because it really does seem like it started with the Sentinel, because the Sentinel, you got, what was it, 2 full figures, 2 extra heads, plus
an extra figurehead to make another character.
Yeah, and then there were the tentacles and the battle damaged hand.
Yeah.
Actually, that makes 3 heads because they also had the battle damaged head, because they had that master mold and the 3 head.
Yep.
I tend to forget because I bought yours without any of those shit because I didn't care.
Right.
So they really did kind of set this expectation of, oh, these can come with like multiple extra figures if it does well enough. Like, well, then with that in mind, it should always do well enough.
Hmm.
And yeah, it seems like some of these projects they get to a point where people, like even the His Tank, like people were still excited, but it felt like with some of the stuff they were disappointed, despite the fact that it made
Right.
sense for what it was. And we touched base on this with the His Tank episode. You can go ahead back on the channel and watch that as well.
Click on the link right here.
It's not going to be there. Uh,
Right here.
maybe I'll put it in the end cards at the end of the show. But we essentially talked about the fact that the attachments for the tank itself, like making it vintage, like look and adding like the missiles and stuff like that, some people were genuinely kind of disappointed in that. I'm like, well, what did you expect? It's a tank. Of course, they were going to give you modern and vintage options and accessories to add on to it to make it even more than what it already is. And you still got
And
figures, but like,
right. And I think the thing is a lot of people think, especially with those parts, they're like, well, those should have come included on the get go.
mm-hmm,
Well, yeah, but it has to fit within a proper budget. And if they make more, then the budget expands and they can
mm-hmm,
add new items. And that's really where it comes from. Because if they don't have to make those extra items or can't make those extra items to fit that one cost, then that's what it is for that item. And I
mm-hmm.
think people, so shockingly, lose sight of that.
People don't understand business. What?
Right, right, right. Everything should be the price it was in 1987.
Shit. And then the fact that Hasbro in general, all their prices are increasing pretty
Right.
substantially compared to some of the competitors,
Yes.
and I feel like that's adding to it too because the His Tank, I'm not gonna lie, it was a good price, but it was more than I expected when they initially teased it, just based on like some other vehicles that other companies have given us, and the size of it. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's just because they know that the Joe Bros are gonna go nuts for it or something. Um, but my fear is that we're gonna get this Ghost Rider one, and it's gonna end up being something along the lines of like a souped up version of his motorcycle, but it's gonna be a couple $100 for something that normally would be a $50 set at Target.
Right. My guess is if it is, see, my suspicion is that it's going to be, and I don't know the name, which name, if it's Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch or whatever, but I think it's going to be the one that's in the car.
Oh yeah, the new guy.
Yeah.
That was my initial thought too, but everyone started pointing out, well, that wouldn't make sense because they're supposedly doing this because of the anniversary. So why would you do the new guy in the car if the anniversary is the anniversary of Johnny Blaze? So I am, if it's the car, I'm intrigued. Depending on if it has a normal version and then everything attaches onto it, or if it's automatically going to be like flame
Right.
on whole 9 yards. Because if you can get me a normal charger, I might drop some money on it. But if it's going to be in a constant state where it's clearly Ghost Rider's car, then I'm a big maybe at that point.
Right.
But that's what I initially thought too, though. Is the second they said, I'm like, oh, it's got to be the car, like because the
Then if
bikes
it's not,
aren't that much.
yeah, if they do, because if they do the classic style bike, that will require a new bike. They've been
Mm-hmm.
using a lot of the same parts and pieces here and there when they can. So I think it'll be a little bit more old school 70s motorcycle. If it is him on the motorcycle, my guess is it'll either come with or be included with a stretch, some sort of fiery road type diorama piece. I'm gonna say 150.
That's gonna be that is where I think Marvel may have their first flop because unless the figure is truly incredible and knocks it out of the park to the point people are like, I have to have that for my collection. I can't see, especially with all the complaints of the price hikes as they are, people paying 3 times the normal amount for a motorcycle. Like, if it was, like, I get that, all new tolling and all that, but at that point, that puts it, in my opinion, like, at the $80 range, like, to.
Sure, but that I think that's also 2 years ago prices.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're also you're paying a premium because it's a limited item. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think it'll be 150 if that's what it is. And I say if the price point is $150, no matter what is included, if the Haslab price point is $150, it'll fund in less time than the His Tank took, which was 8 hours.
I mean, with it being essentially, because that's the least expensive HasLab thus far, right?
Right.
They haven't done
So
anything that was lower than 200.
Star Saber Victory
Okay.
was 180, I
Okay.
think. Because it's more of a it's not quite a Titan class. It's considered Titan class, but it's not a Titan size.
Mm-hmm.
But with the detailing and deco, they're considering it a Titan uh, class version. So those are usually the 160 to 170 range. So yeah, I think it was 180. It was definitely under $200. I could look, but I will look while we
Okay.
talk about something
Awesome.
else. I will look.
But yeah, I agree that I think there'll be a lot of complaining, but I do think
Oh
that you're right
sure.
that it'll probably sell through faster, just because of the fact that the expectation for HasLabs has been that like, oh, it's a HasLab, I'm probably dropping at least 300 on whatever it is,
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
if not more, because I mean, even what was before the His Tank they did? Because they did Galactus, and that one was like 500, right? Because he's bigger than the Sentinel, and the Sentinel
Yeah, I
was
do believe.
400 ish.
I do believe so. Yeah. I'm sorry. Victory Saber, Star Saber is another form of his, so I'm gonna lose some cred points there. But it's 179.
Okay, so yeah,
It's
that's yeah.
179, and Galactus was 399.
Okay, so he was only 400. Okay.
Yep.
Um.
Yep.
So yeah, that kind of just, I really don't know what they're gonna do, but I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's easy to it's easy to figure out a little bit more of their successes by looking at the failures.
Mm-hmm.
So look at the Cookie Monster. That was the second project to launch. At that point, the Katana had funded the Jabba's sail barge, but had not yet shipped. So at least I don't think so. I could be
No, I
wrong,
think I
but
remember it not
maybe it
shipping
had.
yet, because people were like kind of like in that speculative stage of like, well, I had to
Yeah,
wait a year to get this, so why would I want to do another one so quickly? Even though it was
yeah,
Sesame Street, so it's not like it had a huge
yeah.
backing to begin with.
And no, that was the issue there too. So it's kind of a weird thing, but adults do get nostalgic about things of their youth, but
Mm-hmm.
rarely do they get nostalgic for their preschool years. That's
Yeah.
not commonly something that gets, unless they're watching something that maybe their older brothers or sisters liked or something like that. But generally speaking, we do not get nostalgic for preschool era stuff,
Yeah.
and that's included Sesame Street. When you talk, yeah, Sesame Street, as a concept and as a piece of history, it's incredible. But I even tried, like, one year they brought out like this Sesame Street old school DVD set, and it was
Mm-hmm.
actually like from the 60s and into the 70s and stuff like that. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
that'll be amazing. It was still like, I don't need to watch this. This is incredibly, not for my age group. Like, it was fun, but at the same time, it got old real quick,
Yeah.
you know? So whereas, like, because I bought that, because I'm a big Jim Henson fan, I love the Muppets. The Muppets are a completely different story. Like, I do get nostalgic for the Muppets. I loved the
Mm-hmm.
Muppet Show. It had some biting humor that were for the adults that were
Yeah,
watching.
Muppets is
And
more evergreen
yeah,
for everybody, where Sesame Street is
exactly.
very clearly a child's audience.
Thank you for just very succinctly cutting down all my bullshit, and just distilling it into what it needed to be said. Thank you. I was going on way too long about that. But yeah, so that's like you had mentioned that before we started to record. It's like, who was that for?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. Like, who? What? Like, and I got to see it like in person when I was in San Diego in
Oh yeah.
2019. They actually had it, and it was so cool. And I was like, I'm gonna get this just because it's so cool. And then I didn't, because I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do with it? Like, and
Put it
that's
in a
just it.
glass case in the middle of your living room.
Yeah, if it was Kermit, Rolf, Janice, Dr. Julia Strangepork, anything that had to do with the Muppet Show, we would be in a completely different situation. At least with me.
Yeah.
So then that was the only failure for a while. Now, I think Unicron was the third. And if I remember right, that one was over 700 initially. Like, it was expensive out the gate, but it was Unicron. It didn't look like it was going to hit. And then they extended it, which I believe is the only time in HasLab history they did that. So it did succeed.
But it needed a little help.
Yes, it would not have had. It would not have. And I have to think that there was just maybe, I don't know if there was too much cost, because there is a cost involved with bringing the project even to the HasLab. There's a certain amount of cost for the research, the development. They have to have a prototype, a working prototype, before that thing can launch, because just to make sure that it can be manufactured. And so a considerable amount of cost goes in it. A lot of people don't think about that. They think, well, HasLab can just throw something up there, and if it doesn't fund, no big deal. They don't. They're not right. They're not able to take it to production, which is ultimately the goal. Yeah, they make money on that, but I wonder how much of that money is just going back into, back paying all the research and development that went into it, and then they were able to manufacture it and make some profit to pay their employees. But I don't know how much they really make off that. Could be a ton. Maybe I'm just full of it and I'm trying to play devil's advocate. And they just make
comments
a shit
that we've
ton.
had in the past. We're just a bunch of jackasses who know nothing about what we're talking about.
Cool. I've never pretended to be anything other than a dude in his basement that talks about toys. I have no professional. So yeah. Spot on review.
I always forget to edit out our credentials at the end.
If you could get that on a shirt, I would wear it. That's high praise. So, what was I saying? Oh, right. So they had to extend. No, it's fine. It's your turn. So after that one, then I think it went into. I think that might have been the Razor Crest. That was next.
I'm trying to remember. Are you sure it wasn't the Victory Saber thing?
No, because that was just last year, because I haven't got it yet.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think.
Because I did pledge that one.
Because Razor Crest happened before the Sentinel.
Right. Because the Razor Crest did break the record initially of how many units were ordered, which I believe was 28,000, and then the Sentinel broke that, which was 31.
I think so. I remember it was a decent gap between the two. Yeah, I think you're right. I think next one was Razor Crest, then Sentinel, because I just remember that the Razor Crest, literally the week after it closed, they blew it up on the show.
Yeah. Which, on one hand, I saw the humor, but on the other hand, I'm like, we just shelled out $450 for the sail barge, and it blows up in the movie that we watched. I mean, the first time we saw it was also the last time we saw it. So
I think it's more so just the fact that the popularity.
The timing was ironic. It was ironic. It never bothered me though.
It's not like
I was still excited to get it.
Yeah, it's not like they sold you on this $500 toy, and then the movie came out and it got blown up in 2 seconds, kind of thing. But yeah, it cracked me up because I'm just sitting there watching it and it blew up. I'm like, oh, I bet there's gonna be a bunch of people who pissed they just dropped $500.
Yeah, it was only $350.
I thought it was more than that. I thought it was more than the Sentinel because it was massive and had a lot of detail on the inside.
Well, we're a bunch of jackasses who don't know what the hell we're talking about.
And I do very little research these days. I'm gonna get better at it, but right now I still don't have the time because I'm still unpacking.
$349.99.
Okay, that's even less than that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Which still baffles me then when they got to the Rancor.
So what baffles you?
Just because the
Hasbro side of it, or the fact that it failed. What?
It's. I'm not surprised it failed. It was the price point for what it was compared to the price point of the Razor Crest as a comparison. Because the Razor Crest was significantly bigger, had a lot more to it just from the get-go. If we don't include any of the extended stuff, it was the better value. And it was somehow cheaper than the Rancor, and I thought the Rancor was really fucking cool. I'm like, if I was into vintage collection, I'd want that. But
Not vintage collection, Black Series.
oh, it was Black Series. That's right.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
it's because it was 27 inches tall. Oh no, wait, that's what the arms raised up. Who's gonna
Yeah.
raise his arms up? Is he gonna
Right.
run like?
They did everything to make that thing look bigger than what it was. Like in
Yeah.
those promotional shots, it was a
So
shit show.
here's the problem. It's because it is the Black Series.
Mm-hmm.
If this had been a vintage collection item, and I'm not just saying that because I am just doing lines off my vintage collection as we speak, just because I love them so much.
Oh, that was gonna be a so
No.
again. Got to keep the bit alive.
Yeah. So, see, the thing with the vintage collection, it is and always has been the world building scale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's why we got, well, for a long time, we got ships and we got play sets and things like that because you could make things in this scale that you couldn't. That's the whole reason that Star Wars figures are the size that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because previous to 1978, when the figures came out, all the figures were like 8 inches tall. It was like the Mego style. And Kenner was like, hey, you can't make ships that the figures will go into at a decent price point at that size. Why don't we make them, I don't know, this big? And that launched an era,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's to this day, even though it's less and less and it has to be Haslab, that is still the scale that you want to world build. That's why they still sell those little display sets. It's why the Razor Crest did well. The Katana didn't do as well because it was the first one. People were skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
I admit I was not sure what ultimately was going to come to fruition when I pledged the money, which that one I think was $450. And a lot of people didn't pursue it, and now it's why it goes for over $2,000 on the secondary market, because I think ultimately they needed to make 8, and I think it ended at 12 or something like that, or maybe I got my numbers a little bit mixed up. I could just look, but I'm not going to at this point. My point is that it just did a little bit over its goal.
Yeah,
and,
not enough to where
people,
like there's a lot of
yes,
them out there.
Right. And there isn't, and it's an amazing piece, and it appeals to people who like modern figures and the original figures because it was a vehicle that was never made for that. Black Series is not the world building scale. They have tried vehicles. Most of them go on clearance. You know,
like the giant TIE fighters and stuff from Force
oh
Awakens.
my God. I mean, yeah. And plus that thing, which I finally got rid of mine, it just took up too much space. I never found a place to have it. I had it for like 5-6 years. I never had a good place to put it. It was always in the way. I eventually just started stacking shit on it because that's all I could do with it. And while the value of some of those, the secondary market value on some of those do go up a little bit because people missed out, it's still not as sought after, especially not for stuff for the vintage collection. So even then, you have to wonder, you know, well, we're not going to do a vehicle for the Black Series because they don't do well. So they thought they'd do a creature. And the Rancor, while awesome and amazing and from my favorite Star Wars movie of all time, I do not want one that's in scale with my Black Series figures. Black Series is a display scale. Mm-hmm. You're not building dioramas. Most people aren't. You're setting them up. You might put them in cool poses, but that's not what they're for. They're with your other 6-inch figures that are mostly on a shelf in a cool pose or a static pose if you're a loser. But that's that's not what a Rancor is going to do. So look at the success of, you know, the Razor Crest. Look at the success of the Katana. Star Wars' next one has to be a vintage collection item. And I think it should be another vehicle, like an all-new tooled, good-size Y-Wing or a full-on A-Wing, especially with the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi next year. An A-Wing, Y-Wing 2-pack, an A-Wing, Y-Wing, B-Wing 3-pack. I would pay $1,000 for that right now.
Jesus.
Yes.
So I like the idea, but given just watching how they do things, I feel like they're not aimed at doing as many of the niche vehicles. They want to do like the iconic ones, because like the sail barge, like that was, the big opening sequence of Return of the Jedi. Um, the Razor Crest was huge, popular show for the Mandalorian. Um, Reva's lightsaber, because Obi-Wan was doing so well, even though that was a terrible idea. And I mean,
Yeah, we
the
didn't touch on
Rancor.
that,
I
but
was gonna bring it up because like, why? Like, in what
yeah,
world was that a good idea? Like, that's not what this is for. Like the
no,
lightsabers, like the force effects stuff, those have a market, and it's
right.
essentially like at like collectible stores and stuff like that. Like that's where you're gonna find those, or pay double at an FYE. Um,
Right.
it's not
Well,
it's something that
I,
people are
the
like trying to crowdfund.
well, also, HasLab is supposed to be for dream items.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't care what your feelings were about Obi-Wan as a series, as Reva as a character. No one, no one's dream item is a brand new character's
Yeah.
lightsaber. I don't care what that character is, even if we're talking about even before the Force Awakens came out, or even right after, because people still like Star Wars. Then it was right after that they didn't. And if they had brought out Kylo Ren's lightsaber at $500, I don't know. That's still a brand new character.
Yeah.
That's again, it's supposed to be a dream item,
Mm-hmm.
a brand new character. You don't have enough time to dream for that item.
Yeah, like if it was the Grand
Okay,
Inquisitor's lightsaber, so they may have had a chance. Still would have
maybe
been
because the
dumb to have
Grand
it on HasLab,
it
but
would have, and because I mean, the Grand Inquisitor does have more of an audience because he's been
Mhm.
around longer. It's
Mhm.
still a small part of the Star Wars.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, people don't want to watch Rebels because it's a cartoon or some bullshit like that. But whatever.
I think with Rebels, the
all of
problem is that
modern.
it was marketed as a kid show,
Well, so was the Clone Wars. I mean,
and
it's the
yeah, and that's why a
same
lot of people didn't watch that until after.
until afterwards. But I don't think enough people even now are getting onto Rebels and all of everything that Filoni is working for with in Favreau for the Mandalorian, for Ahsoka, for Book of Boba Fett, for everything, all that stuff separate from Andor. All of that springs from Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Even Obi-Wan, all of that springs from Rebels. Modern Star Wars comes from Rebels. And I'm not talking about the sequels. I'm talking about what is going on in current modern Star Wars right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is all tied to Rebels. And I got off on another tangent, but I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
No,
but
I
yes,
know,
the Grand
because
Inquisitor.
I've seen some of Rebels. I
Yeah.
haven't watched it through and through,
Oh,
but
you have to.
I've seen like enough of the references to get what some of
Right.
these like things are coming. Like I know the whole thing with like Ahsoka being like plucked from the timeline and stuff and stuff like that. Spoilers.
Well, not really. Well, not plucked from the timeline. She's just older.
No, I thought that there was a point where what's his name, as Urza, whatever, the kid,
Ezra.
Yeah, doesn't he do some sort of force shit where he pulls her from the timeline before she's like dead? Like she's supposed to die in some fight, and then he does something where he goes back in time and he manages to pull her from the timeline before she's dead, and that's why she was still around.
I mean, I don't remember that. I don't remember a lot of stuff.
Okay,
like,
I was like, I thought that was
she's just older. I mean, I don't remember that. But again, it gets fuzzy. But she's just older. So, let me look at my phone like this.
Are you fact checking me?
I'm gonna feel real stupid if this is a real thing and I don't remember it.
I could be wrong, because like I said, I've seen bits and pieces of it, and I've had like some things explained to me, and I could have been fed wrong information or could have misunderstood said information, but that was at least my understanding of how she exists in the current continuity of like the Mandalorian and stuff, is because in Rebels she dies, but like Ezra goes and fucks with the timeline and saves her, and now she just exists outside of time.
No.
See, now you're gonna make me want to look up like to see what it is I'm mixing up, because like Ezra saves Ahsoka. Gotta make sure.
Like Ahsoka fights Darth Vader, and it doesn't look like.
So yeah, he saves her from Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Let me see. I don't want to watch this YouTube video, but I feel like I have to. But we're doing a podcast, and it's not going to be entertaining to people if we're sitting here watching YouTube videos. we will we will come back to this at a later time, and I'll watch the video, and if it is in fact what happens, then I'll send it to you. But because I simply just don't want to make our content even sadder than what it is for some people by having us sit here in silence while we stare at our phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the Haslabs, I mean, Star Wars really has to do something to turn the ship around because they are essentially the problem child.
Okay. I remember this now. Yes, but no. It's not from a timeline thing. He actually is able to just like pull her out of the fight, but it's not like a time travel thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. But yeah, so Star Wars is the problem child. They need to figure out how to turn it around.
They don't just do a vintage collection. Just make
well,
it
no, I'm
something
saying
badass.
they need to figure out how to turn around because they seem to have lost their way because they did vintage collection, Black Series, Force Effects, lightsaber.
And that's because they're two different teams, or there's multiple different teams in there. So yeah, they each get their shot to pitch something, I think. But I think that seeing how it has failed for those two parts of the line, it needs to just be a vintage collection type thing.
Yeah, like if you're gonna, I think if they decide down the line to try Black Series again, the best option would be to do like a small playset, kind of like how they did those Power of the Force Cantina playsets. Do something like that, but make it the whole thing. So like you get a like even if it's just the bar, like something that will fit on your shelf as a display for your figures, not something that's going to take up a fucking card table.
But I don't think that's a dream item. I don't think a little display piece for Black Series is a dream item. I would rather have a full Cantina bar for the vintage collection so it can actually be detailed and look amazing, not just be a setup or for a section. Because to me, that's what somebody can do with their 3D printer and paint them and sell them at cons like I see. I would not want that, and that's not a dream item.
So here's, you keep saying dream item. I don't know if that's their thing anymore. Like it was when they first started, but if you look at it as they moved on, like if Ghost Rider is the next Haslab, I can't think of anything in that scenario that is a quote unquote dream item because they've done.
We haven't seen it yet. You could be right.
Yeah,
you could be absolutely right. We haven't seen it yet though either. But think about every one of them that has succeeded. Now, I will question the G.I. Joe Sky Striker because that's an existing piece. They've recreated the classic Sky Striker. So to me, that's not a dream item. I have one. And so they were trying to appeal to an audience that that's a weird one because the O-ring figures, while they've released a couple here and there, that's not really a mainline thing that they're doing. It's not in retail stores. So that was a strange one. But every other one that has succeeded, I think, is a dream item.
Yeah.
Everyone
like
has wanted
Sentinel,
a full-scale Sentinel.
Unicron.
Galactus. Yeah. Even though the Razor Crest is a newer item, it's from a very popular part of probably the most popular modern piece of Star Wars there is. And that was the only way it was going to get made. And people can wax nostalgic all they want that should have been in retail, but there's no way. Not in this current climate. Retail would not have taken that, and they would have had to make serious changes, and it would have looked more like the what is it called, Mission Fleet stuff. Yeah. It's kind of like the kids line. Yeah.
So here's my question for you on this. So one thing that my boss actually brought up to me because we were talking about Marvel Legends the other day. And we were talking about the Haslabs, and he was talking about how he gets that obviously it's stuff that won't make it to retail. But what he's upset about is the fact that they won't do business with comic book shops, toy stores, like the fan channel essential side of things when it comes to these, because he's like he would have zero issue if they would let him do like he does other Marvel Legends where he pays a certain cost and has a margin where he doesn't have to charge eBay prices for it and he can have it in his store. He would buy them without any hesitation. And like part of me, I get why they do it that way, but at the same time, it almost makes me wonder like, well, that could be open a door for them because say you have some that are getting barely over that line. If you open up the fan channel, like, hey, all of our distribution channels. If you want this, here's the cost that you're gonna have to pay for it. Um, Here's how many you have to buy minimum or whatever. Like if you want to make them buy 1 or 5 or 6, whatever, um, that could put you well past that point and even bring their costs down, because there's tons of shops across the America that have even bought them after the fact or have paid full price and now have them in their shop for, whatever they're going for on eBay. And like I see them all the time at like conventions and stuff where shops bring them trying to sell them. And unfortunately, if some of them, they have their prices a little too high, so it's a little harder to push it. But if they had the opportunity to be able to sell that closer to retail, that could make it easier for them, because then they're not fronting $500 hoping to get $700 out of something. Because when you're having to charge eBay prices for something, the customers are less likely to, because the people in the know are going to look at it like, oh, well, why would I buy it from you when I can just order it online on eBay? And people who don't know, it's out of their price range anyway.
If you let retailers in on this at a price break, then you're selling it to e-tailers or making a fan channel release at that point that other people can buy into. But if you start giving it to them at a discount because they have to make a margin on it as well, more people are more likely to wait, not buy from Hasbro direct and just buy it from an e-tailer that they're funding it with. And Hasbro then has to raise the price because they're budgeted out. I feel they're budgeted out for a certain amount of sales at $399. Well, if they make it at $329 to give, retailers a margin to sell it at that same price, then the budget gets thrown out of whack and they have to raise the price of the item. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. My argument against that is, because we're not talking like MSRP where there's like a set standard price. I'm talking that because they'll have in it their shipping costs as well. So you're not going to, like, if it's $450 on Haslab, you're not going to pay that at a mom and pop shop. Let's be honest. No mom and pop shop who's in the know enough that they're interested to have this on their shelves is not going to at least have you covering whatever their shipping cost was on top of that, or have like a middle ground. Because if it was $450 and it's $700 on eBay, you're probably gonna pay $500, $550 at a mom and pop shop who isn't looking to just gouge you.
I would pay anything up to and including $1 less than what I can get it for eBay if I have it right in my hands.
Well, I agree. I'm just saying most of them aren't going to put it at what you could have gotten it at, because at that point it's a specialty item. It's no longer available. It's not like it's continually being created. So my thought process is, if it's $450 on Haslab, you're not going to pay that at a mom and pop shop. You may not pay eBay prices at mom and pop shop, but you aren't going to pay that. So why if they're all going to ship at the same time, you have no incentive to wait.
I guess I'm not following, because what I'm seeing there is that if you're letting retailers in on it and they want any type of price break to be able to sell it at that price, more than likely more people will order it from that retailer,
but
so they don't have to pay up front.
Unless you're thinking e-retailers. I'm talking small shops. I'm talking comic book shops, toy stores, all independently owned things. I'm not talking Big Bad Toy Store. Because Big Bad Toy Store will buy 30 of them and charge $150 over whatever Haslab has and let you pre-order it that way, not pay it until it comes in or pay a deposit, whatever. I'm talking if independently owned shop would undercut eBay because they want to sell it, unless they're like certain shops that live down the street from me that usually are more expensive than eBay because they think, oh, you can get it here instead of having to wait for it. Why wouldn't you want to pay more? But like, for instance, at the store I work at, they up until about a week ago, they still had the entire wave 2 of the retro carded Spider-Man figures for Marvel Legends. They had one black suit Spidey left. They were charging about, I think, $5 or $10 less than eBay, but they still got it from their distribution center. But because you couldn't get them at fucking Target at all, and Walmart, you were lucky if you saw them. So unless you manage to get a pre-order from Big Bad or Entertainment Earth, it's essentially gone. So that's what I'm saying is most independently owned places aren't going to put it at that retail price unless it's got direct competition down the street at Target or Walmart.
Right.
So they'd still have the ability to make money off of it without having to charge eBay prices.
Right. My whole point, though, is that Hasbro's not going to want to take a price break to give to retailers to charge it whatever they're going to charge it for. They're going to want them to pay it at full price. So I completely understand budgetary reasons why. I completely understand why they don't reach out to retailers on this. If retailers want it, then they have to commit just like everybody else.
Yeah,
but
a lot of them do.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. No Haslab has ever gone down in value. Okay? The minute they're over, it's like this with any made-to-order product, and I don't understand. The minute it is over, oh man, can I get one of these at non-eBay prices?
And it's not even like
Seriously?
shipped yet. Like they're literally like
right. Like it just got taken on my credit card, and this guy wants a deal on it. Like, no, like there will always be a market for idiots who, for whatever reason, don't jump into it. And I'm sorry if that offends you or whatever, because you got money things or whatever. This is an expensive hobby. Figure out budget, plan for it. That's all I'm saying. Just don't write me nasty emails, or write me nasty emails. I don't care. I'm an idiot who doesn't know what they're talking about.
At Nate
anyway.
Bryant 1985 on Instagram.
Do it. So yeah, I understand why they don't, and it is on the retailer side. I totally get where they're coming from, but we probably spent way more time on that. Than
I think because me trying to explain it in a way that makes sense dragged it on.
Yeah.
My thought process with it is just solely the fact that it could potentially cut down Hasbro's costs because they could have more options, because less and less of these independent shops are buying them because, one, to make any money, they have to essentially charge eBay prices if they're paying full price plus shipping like everyone else. Which
time, if you're a premium member, though, you're not paying for shipping. So anybody who's buying more than one, no, I'm serious.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, most people
so
aren't
no
premium.
Shipping. If I ordered one His tank and I signed up for premium solely for the reason that shipping was going to be $32, or I could spend $50 on Pulse and then get free shipping for the rest of the year. If I'm ordering 5 of them,
that's fair.
I'm signing up for Pulse. Let's be honest, $50 then gets me everything, and then you can order shit from them. And because listen, I worked at a shop as well that sold toys, and certain distributors, a lot of times the price that we got them for was like $1 less than what Walmart's selling them for. So there's a reason why the independent shops are $5, $7, $8 more, because there's no margin on these things, and so it's kind of the same.
Hell, even with like McFarlane, the larger like mega figures, we don't carry them because what we'd have to pay for them is what Amazon charges for it. Yeah. So yeah, like I get it. I'm just thinking of ways that Hasbro could bring their costs down and give more opportunities out there to these shops, because most of them get stuck with these things after they pay for it, and they're going to stop supporting it because they're not going to buy 5 of them if they can't move them.
I just don't think anybody has gotten stuck with a Haslab yet. That's just me.
I've seen a few that are like a few places that still have Sentinels sitting around because they're charging like $750 and no one wants to pay an eBay price if they don't have to.
Right. You could price it well below that at $6 and you're still making a ton of money. If they're not selling it because of the price, that's on them, not because of the product or because that, Hasbro. I think Haslab is amazing. I love it. I think it's a great way to get items that you would never, ever get before. People speak with their wallets, which is something that's not immediately apparent at retail. I think like I said before, with every failure, you learn something. Adults don't want preschool shit. Maybe we don't need a Rancor that's the size of a toddler. We also don't want a brand new lightsaber of a brand new character from a TV show. It's just, look at what made the great successes, amazing dream items like Galactus, the Sentinel, Yes, the add-ons did factor into that, but Marvel Legends has a tooling library that is unparalleled to
Yeah,
any other line at this point.
because those figures that came with most of those are almost
Right.
100% reuse minus the heads.
Yeah. I think the only one that's not is that bigger dude that's coming with
Yeah.
Galactus.
Mm-hmm.
That was an all new one, but I'm sure they have plans for that.
Yeah.
So it's a what they call a pre-tool. Like they have plans for it. So, yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think we'll see an announcement for at least 2 projects at the PulseCon at the end of September. My guess is it will be a vintage collection item. And I originally was saying the Power Rangers, but they kind of already did the Megazord thing with another company in partnership. So I don't know if that would be the case. I definitely don't think it would be Ghostbusters. They're not going to do G.I. Joe immediately again.
Yeah.
So it would probably, be Transformers. Well, I guess the Ghost Rider is more than likely probably. But I think it'd be Ghost Rider and a Star Wars item.
That
Star
makes
Wars
sense. It seems like those are the ones they're taking over because they haven't really done much for even Transformers since those first 2.
Well, the first one was just last year. I know you don't want to.
I thought Unicron was a couple years.
The last one.
Oh, okay, the last one. You said the first one.
Star Saber Victory. Yeah, I'm sorry. But the Star Victory. That just happened last year.
Okay.
Like it's we haven't got it yet.
It doesn't feel. Everything feels like it's so much further. Like time does not.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird.
Yeah,
I think it was last August, to be honest.
So in theory, it should.
I will look it up.
Shipping.
Yeah, I know they have last I heard they had a working prototype and everything like that, and it went to factory. But
so I guess my last concern that I'm going to express before we close things out is.
Oh, we did forget one.
Oh.
Hero Quest. But that was a weird one because that eventually did go to retail. So it was essentially a crowdfunded launch because we did it. It got funded, it got made, it got sent to us, and then 6 months later it went to retail. It's the only item to do that.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So
so my only last concern is fatigue. So a big problem with some of these is we get like a 5-month lull where there's nothing, and then it's boom, 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 3 in a row. So in the course of 3 months, they want you to drop $1,500.
That is a huge mistake because having so many projects so close to Christmas, this is not an item that you're like, we're not even going to get it. You can get it as a gift. It needs to be after the first of the year, tax season time. That would be an amazing time to launch these projects, but that's not flashy enough, I guess.
Yeah, I would say do 1 per quarter.
Yeah.
That's the smartest way to do it, because having them 3 in a row, all you're doing is hindering who's going to be able to get this, because most of your fan base who's complaining about your $5 increase in price can't spend $1,500 in a 3-month span on toys.
I think it was even less of a span than that, because I think Galactus,
they overlapped.
Ghostbusters, and the Rancor were going to overlap. Oh, the Skyscraper. Those 3 were all going on at the same time.
That's
and then
right. I remember that now.
They ended within just a few weeks of each other. So it was like 1, and then 2 weeks later another one, and then 2 weeks later another one. So yeah, if you did all 3, well, one of them didn't get funded, but still 2 of them did, and that's.
But had they been all funded, you basically have spent like several car payments just on a couple toys.
Yeah,
they were very large toys, but
we didn't talk about the Ghostbusters one at all. I'm not into role play items, at least not these kind. But that is a dream item, because I mean that's a proton pack.
Yeah, like
from one of the most famous movies in history. I think. Oh, how can I say this without getting just ripped on? I think Ghostbusters is an amazing movie. I do not believe it is a franchise, so that's just a whole thing that's for me.
My problem with the Ghostbusters one is the fact that because they had made the wand separate, it wasn't included.
That was super shitty.
I'm like, fuck you.
Shitty. Yeah, but I understand why it funded. I don't see another role play item like that.
What are you talking about? This October, they're gonna make the jumpsuits.
I mean, if they made a full size Power Ranger outfit you could wear, that'd be pretty cool. But that would be dependent on sizes.
You don't want the Garbage Man brown zip up with the gloves and interchangeable Velcro patches?
I mean, I'm not saying that no, actually I am saying I don't. I don't. I like it. I liked it a lot as a kid. I don't really understand I'm going to shut up because I'm.
You're getting bullied on the internet.
It's an amazing movie in 1984. Anything after that,
I enjoyed Afterlife. I also
it's
enjoyed the
fine.
2016 one, but I'm on the
It's
outlier on that one.
fine. The only one that's not fine is Ghostbusters 2, which is a piece of shit. And they should have left it alone as a cartoon after the movie. First movie, cartoon.
And on that note, uh, make sure to like and subscribe. Helps us out here in the channel. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts on Haslab. Do you think it's going to stop anytime soon? Are you fatigued? Are you ready to have like maybe a break from it all? Or are you dropping just car payment after car payment after car payment every couple months? YouTube, or not YouTube, or on YouTube, twitch.tv/Modern Toy Fair for Wednesday Night OnlyFigs, where we go over our weekly purchases, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, at Modern Toy Fair. Jarmar's not here tonight, but you can still go find his podcast, Why You're a Gamer, on all major podcast platforms, where he talks to people about why they play video games. And, of course, yeah, that's all I got. What you got for us, Nate?
Well, I got a brand new podcast coming out called Answer the Call Minute. This is where we take the minute-by-minute format begun by Star Wars Minute, and we take a look at the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, minute by minute, and I tell you how that movie, minute by minute, is actually better than Ghostbusters 2, minute by minute.
Damn. That escalates so quickly.
Oh, I hate that movie.
So yeah, down below there's gonna be Smash or Pass. You can click on that to go check out that fun episode where Nate decides which G.I. Joe characters he'd have sex with. There's gonna be this week's review where I look at the Mafex reissue of Spider-Man. But hopefully we'll see you next week. Same toy time, same Toy Fair channel. Thank you for watching.
Do it.